Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Welcome back to another video. Guys, so with spooky season approaching, I was thinking it'd be like a fun little idea to start doing like some spooky kind of videos or something like that. So I came up with this idea that I'm gonna do Spooky Sunday. Every Sunday I'll be uploading a video talking about something like spooky or like true crime or just something along those lines while I do my makeup. And yes, this is heavily inspired by Bailey Sarian. If you don't know who Bailey Sarian is, then definitely go check her YouTube out. She also does videos doing her makeup while she talks about like true crime and like dark history, and just it's a really good channel if you guys are into that kind of stuff. So yeah, I was really inspired to do something like that for spooky season since it is now October. But yeah, that's what I'm gonna be doing for today. And for episode 1, I just thought we would get right into it and talk about Jeffrey Dahmer. So if you guys didn't know, Netflix actually just released a new show. It's about Jeffrey Dahmer and like his victims and like everything that happened. Jeffrey is played by Evan Peters and he's such a good actor. I love how he like portrayed it. It just sucks that you like love the actor but hate the character. But yeah, if you guys haven't seen it, go watch it. I did see a lot of people say that they couldn't get past like the first or second episode because it's just such a sad story, you guys. It really is like horrifying what he did to all the victims. I actually watched the whole season already. So if you guys don't want to watch it but you want to learn more about what he did and like who is Jeffrey Dahmer, then just keep on watching this video. I'm also going to be doing a makeup look. Before we get started, just do me a huge favor and give this video a thumbs up, and also don't forget to subscribe before you leave. But yeah, let's just get into this story. But overall, I've read that they were like a very stable family and that Jeff had a pretty good upbringing, and that actually wasn't until he was 4 years old that he had to have a hernia surgery. And then they just say that after that surgery, like he changed a lot. They say after that surgery, he wasn't as playful anymore. He kind of just was more quiet, kept to himself. And you know, he's only 4 years old. So I feel like when you're a child, you can definitely tell the difference when they're like sick or when they're playful. So I'm pretty sure the parents could tell the big difference in how he was acting after his surgery. No, and as he gets a little older, he's a normal kid, but he's just kind of weird. He's just kind of like the outsider, has very little friends, if any, and yeah, he's just a little weird. Kids at school started noticing that he liked playing with like insects and like just bugs. It said that he would collect them. He would place a lot of insects in like mason jars and just keep them in there and just kind of like have all different kinds of like insects and bugs. Even in the documentary, it's shown that he gives his teacher a jar filled of tadpoles, and the teacher thought like that's kind of weird, but you know, she still accepted it. It kind of started progressing. He went from like collecting insects and bugs to then showing interest in roadkill. And to me, that was like one of the first like red flags, because like, you know, when you hear about murderers and serial killers, they usually start showing interest in roadkill and like dissection and all that. So then he started asking his dad some questions about like dissection and that kind of stuff. And his dad already knew something was kind of off about Jeff, and he like felt he was kind of weird, didn't really have any interests or hobbies. And his dad was a chemist, so he's like a scientist. When Jeff started asking him about like dissection and all of this, it got the dad like, I don't know, happy. He was like excited that Jeff was finally showing interest in something. I mean, I'm not sure that's like the best thing for your son to show interest in, but okay. And yeah, so then they started like dissecting things together, animals. They started dissecting animals together in their garage, and Jeff was just like really into it. And Jeff just described that he loved feeling the insides of these animals. I know, red flag, right? He like loved seeing the insides. He liked feeling he just liked seeing the insides, and he liked feeling the insides. But again, the dad thought it was simply just like, oh, he's interested in science, you know, dissection, and he didn't really think too much of it. But like something was not right in Jeff's mind at this time already. And one day he found a dead dog on the side of the road, and I think this is the first time he like has severed a body part. He severed the dead dog's head he pinned the body on a tree and he took the dog's skull. What he wanted to do with the skull, I'm not sure, but I just know that he took it. And that was already something so gruesome that he was doing to a dead animal. Okay, so now we fast forward a couple of years and Jeff is in high school and he's not really doing too good. His grades are slipping a lot. And he also started taking alcohol to school. So he would literally just show up like with a 6-pack and drink it at school. You know, so he started drinking a lot. His grades are slipping. And also his parents are just fighting a lot more at home now. Oh, and I also forgot to mention, they actually had another son. So Jeff did have a younger brother. Jeff actually was able to graduate high school. How he did it, I have no idea. But he graduated high school, and then once he graduated, his parents divorced. Once they divorced, his mom was granted full custody of his younger brother, and she actually ended up just leaving. She took the younger brother and she left Jeff alone at the house. And at this point, they were divorced. So Jeff's dad had left a while ago. I think he was living like at a hotel or something. But yeah, so Jeff was now alone in the house, like with no parental supervision at all. He's freshly graduated, he's 18 years old, and he's completely alone in like this big ass house all by himself. He didn't apply for colleges, so he was just home all day drinking beers and getting drunk, and who knows what other things he was doing. But that summer, on June 18th, 1978, he actually was driving around and he saw a hitchhiker. And he thought the hitchhiker was like really cute or whatever. So he picks him up and he's like, hey, do you want to go back to my place and drink some beers, lift some weights? I have the whole house to myself, so you can come back and we can just chill. And the hitchhiker says yes. So yeah, they have a couple of beers together and they're hanging out. And then like after a while, the hitchhiker, he decides he wants to leave already. And I think that just kind of like upsets Jeff. Like he does not want him. I mean, think about it. He's been alone. He's 18 years old and he's been alone in this house for who knows how long. He's had no like social interaction. I don't think he was working at this time yet. And then all of a sudden he has like this cute hitchhiker that he's hanging out with and he suddenly wants to leave. I guess he just gets like really mad and he tries to make him stay, but the hitchhiker's like, no, I gotta go. So Jeff actually gets really mad and he hits him in the head twice with a 10-pound dumbbell. So Jeff says this was his first ever murder. This is the first time he ever kills somebody, and he just says he was feeling all kinds of emotions. He was excited, he was scared, he was just feeling a lot of things. So I guess he ended up like playing around with the body a little, and then he ended up burying him. But then a couple of days later, he actually took him out, and then that's when he like started cutting up his flesh and he like took apart his bones and he tried dissolving his bones in acid. So this is his first murder, and it's also the first time he's really experimenting like with a human body. And I guess he just liked it because, well, we all know where he went from that point. So Jeff's dad had actually gotten into a new relationship. I think he was engaged at the time with this new woman, and they actually went to check on Jeff one day at the house. And when he got there, he did not know at all that Jeff had been living alone this whole time. He had no idea that his mom had left him. And when he went to the house, he saw it was a big mess and there was just like beer cans everywhere. So he definitely knew that Jeff was like not really doing anything and he was like in kind of trouble, but like struggling. So he wanted to help. So the dad actually offered to pay to put him into college. So then Jeff went to Ohio State University, and the dad paid tuition like ahead of time. So he like paid for all of his studies. But Jeff did not do well at all in college. He actually only went for 3 months. I think he was expelled, and he only had a GPA of 0.45, guys. Like, that's super low. I don't even know how you can get such a low grade. He just must not have been trying at all. But yeah, so he ended up leaving. Well, he was kicked out of college, and his dad was like super furious at him. He was like, well, then you're going into the army. Okay, so now Jeff has enlisted into the army, and in July of 1979, he's actually sent to Germany So he's there, I think, for a while. He actually got like a pretty good job with the army. He was like a medical, something medical. I forgot what it was, but he was actually doing really good in the army. Like he made it to be a medical, I forgot what kind of medical, but he had a job that was medical in the army, and his dad was just super proud of him. But that didn't last at all either. Actually, 2 men from the army that he was stationed with came forward that he had raped them, and this resulted of him being like kicked out of the army. So once he was kicked out of the army, he was like, shoot, like my dad, like he's gonna be so pissed. So he actually ended up going to Florida after the army, and he just got a job and he got his own place there, and he was trying to make it out there alone. But in the end, he couldn't do it. He actually ended up getting fired from his job, and he also like lost his place. He got evicted. So he kind of had no choice but to call his dad at this point. And again, like his dad was just like furious. He was like so upset. Like you can tell his dad's trying so bad to help him. He's trying to like make him a man, in my opinion, like, you know, man up and get a job and do good for yourself. But Jeff just keeps like blowing it at this point. The dad has had it, but he's like still trying to help. So he's like, okay, you can come live with me and his new wife. So his dad gives him one more chance. So now he's back in Ohio with his dad and with his wife. But again, this doesn't last very long. He ends up getting like really drunk, and he actually gets arrested. He gets arrested for public intoxication and also orderly misconduct. And when this happens, the dad's like, that's it. Like, I can't do more for you. Like, I've helped you as much as I could. You have to go live with your grandma, because I'm done with you pretty much. Okay, so fast forward, and so now Jeff is going to live at his grandma's house, and just poor grandma. And I just feel so bad for his grandma. Like everything that went down in her house, like without her even knowing it, everything she had to deal with Jeff. I mean, once Jeff moved to his grandma's, and let me just say, like, it says that he loved his grandma a lot. He actually started doing better once he moved in with his grandma. He actually got a job at a plasma clinic, and he was there for 10 months. So that was like, I think the longest he's ever lasted at a job. But yeah, he was doing better, and he was going to church with his grandma. Just overall, it looked like he was doing better. But then unfortunately, he does end up getting fired, and then he has no job for 2 years. So then in 1985, that's when he started going to gay bathhouses. Oh my god, I absolutely forgot to mention the fact that he's gay too. I probably should have mentioned that when he was in the army and he raped those 2 men as well. Yeah, he was gay. So he started going to gay bathhouses, and that's when he like started having sex with these guys. But then he said that he actually didn't like how much they talked and how they would move around, and he just didn't like it. So that's where he got the idea to start drugging these men. So this became like a regular thing that Jeffrey was doing. He would take the guys to bathhouses, he would drug them, and then kind of just like rape them and do things with them. After a while, the managers of the bathhouses actually found out, and they actually banned him from plenty of bathhouses. He was banned, so he could not go there again. Okay, so now it's November 20th, 1987, and Jeffrey met a 25-year-old. And he couldn't go to the bathhouses anymore, so he told him like, hey, like, let's go to a hotel and we can hang out there. So Jeffrey ends up killing this guy, but he does say that he never meant to kill him. It just happened. I don't know, but he says, I never meant to kill him. You know, they were drinking. He did drug him. He put, you know, drugs in his drink. And he was like, I just wanted to rape and drug him, but I did not want to kill him. But the morning after, when Jeffrey woke up, he found the guy to be unresponsive, and he saw that his chest was completely like broken. It was broken in. It had blue and black bruises all over it. And he was also bleeding from his mouth. And when Jeffrey looked at his hands, he saw that they were severely bruised as well. So he kind of says he doesn't know what happened. He doesn't remember anything that happened that night. All he says is that he knows he did not mean to kill him. But, I mean, he did. He killed this man. So remember how they went to a hotel? So this happened at the hotel. So Jeffrey actually went to get a suitcase and he stuffed this man's body in the suitcase. And then he ended up taking it to his grandma's house. And he kind of just left him in the basement for a while. And like just threw him in the basement and forgot about him for a while. So then after he takes the body out of the suitcase and he just starts going in on the body. He starts to dismember the body and he crushes the bones. He disposes his remains in a trash bag, but he keeps the head because he wants to keep the head. I'm sorry, it's not funny, but it's like, why would you want to keep this around, you know? But yeah, he keeps the head and he tries to like, you know, preserve it. So he ends up boiling the skull and he tries bleaching it, but it doesn't work. It actually ends up like crushing or like dissolving with the bleach. So he was mad because he really wanted that skull, but he ended up breaking it, so he doesn't get to keep the skull. So then he's kind of just doing this. He's meeting men, drugging them, raping them, and then he just strangles them to death. That's kind of like where he's at right now. And then he went ahead and he bought a camera. So then he met a 14-year-old boy and he kind of just offered him money to take pictures of him. He said, I'll give you 50 bucks if you just take some nude pictures for me. And the kid was like, 50 bucks? Sounds like a deal. So he goes back to his place and takes pictures of the kid, and then he just kills him. And again, he still wanted a skull, so he tried to do the same process again. He tried boiling it and bleaching it, but again the skull broke because of the bleach. And at this point, he's kind of just like experimenting with all the bodies that he has. He's cutting them up, he's experimenting with the bones, seeing how he can preserve some things, cutting certain body parts out. And yeah, this is like his experimental phase. So in March 24th, 1988, he met a 22-year-old man and he told him the same thing, like, hey man, I'll pay you 50 bucks if you take some nude photos for me. So the man agrees, and then he just does the same thing all the time. He drugs them, he rapes them, kills them, and then he just starts dismembering their bodies and experimenting with them. This time he was really quick with it. He was like on a mission, I guess. He really wanted to save that skull, so he dismembered the whole body within 24 hours. So on April 23rd, Jeffrey brings home to the grandma's home a guy, and you know, he drugs him, whatever, and he's planning on like raping him and killing him, you know. But this time the grandma actually heard like the man downstairs. So she started screaming for Jeffrey and asking what he was doing, and that if he had company over, because she heard him. And at this point, Jeffrey was just like, shoot, like she knows he's here now, like I can't just kill this guy now. Basically, since he was already drugged, he just got him in his car and drove him to a hospital and dumped him. And I just think about that so much, because if only the grandma had heard like every guy that he brought home, she could have, like, I don't know, possibly a lot more of them could have survived. But unfortunately, he just heard that one guy, and fortunately for him, like, she did hear them, because I mean, because of that, the guy got to live. But you know, grandma was also getting really fed up with Jeff bringing all these guys home. She was super religious, guys, so she probably wasn't even okay with the fact that he was gay in the first place. Like, I don't think Jeff even ever told her that he was gay. But I mean, what is she gonna think when he's just bringing guys home all the time, you know? So yeah, she was like getting really tired of it, and she told him, you need to get out. So he ended up getting his own place. Also, I forgot to mention, she was also smelling a lot of the body parts. You know, she didn't know it was the body parts, but she definitely was telling Jeff about the smell coming from the basement, and she just kept complaining the smells along with all the guys. And she was also hearing some noises. She just never really like knew what was going on, but she was like so close to like figuring him out, but she just never did. But yeah, that's the reason she like kicked him out. And then on September 25th, he found an apartment, he moved in, and the next day, guys, he got arrested. He didn't even last one day out there on his own. He got arrested the next day. He actually got arrested for molesting a 13-year-old boy. And this is just so sad to me, guys, because when he went to court for molesting this 13-year-old boy, he only got 5 years probation. That's all he got, 5 years probation, and he still had a work permit, so he can still go to work, make money, and he had to register as a sex offender, which I think that's just like the first step in injustice, because I don't know, I just think that anything having to do with a child, that should be like automatic jail time. Like, I don't understand how he just got probation. I really don't. And he was only 13. That's like really young. But again, like, the big thing about Jeffrey Dahmer is how he got away with so much because of, you know, the justice system and just like corrupted cops and judges. If you watch the new show on Netflix, it's more so about that. It's focused more on like the injustice system, or injustice I should say, that happened throughout this whole like story, and like the corrupted cops. It's just really sad to see that he could have been stopped like so many times. He had so many like arrests and like cop problems, but like no one ever cared, it seemed like. So when he got arrested, he had to move back in with his grandma. So he went back with his grandma and he kept killing. He killed another 24-year-old man. And then on March 25th, 1989, he met this man. He was an aspiring model, and Jeffrey just thought he was like super handsome. He thought he was like the cutest guy ever. And again, he ended up killing this man. He stripped the flesh from his bones. He ended up crushing his bones. He kept his skull, and he even kept this man's penis. And this is the first guy that he actually kept his stuff for a while, because again, he thought this guy was very attractive, so he just wanted to keep his stuff like for a long time. And then in 1990, that's when he got a new apartment. In 1990, when he got his new apartment, that's actually when he bought his new camera, because before he would tell them, I'll give you money if you let me take pictures of you, but he wouldn't take pictures of them. It was just an excuse so they would come home with him. So in 1990, that's actually when he bought the camera, and he started posing them in his apartment. So when he would kill them, he would just place them in like sexual positions, just different kind of positions, and take pictures of the bodies in all different kinds of states, like together, dismembered, just dead, lying there, all kinds of pictures. He took them. And then he killed another 27-year-old, and he tried to, remember he was doing with the skull, he was trying to like preserve it. He tried doing that again, but it did break again. So he was pretty upset that he kept breaking these skulls because he wanted to keep them. So then Jeffrey talks about this one guy that he killed, and he placed his body in his bathtub, and he just started dismembering his body there. He dismembered this guy's head, and Jeffrey said he would still talk to it. He would legit like talk to the head, like if he was still alive, I don't know, he would still kiss on this head. That's just like that's like another level of like, I don't know, this man is just crazy, you guys. Like the fact that he cut someone's head off and you're talking to it, it's dead, and he's kissing it, like I just don't know what's going on in this guy's mind that he's able to do this. Also with this guy's body, he wrapped his heart, his biceps, and his muscles. He wrapped them up and put them in the fridge as he was going to eat this later on. So remember when this kind of started, how Jeffrey said he was having sex with these men, but he didn't like the fact that they kept talking and like they kept moving while having sex. So he just wanted complete control of the bodies. So he got this idea that he wanted to turn these men into zombies. So this is pretty trippy to me. So on April 7th, he met a 19-year-old guy, and he ended up, you know, same thing, drugging him, raping him. Only this time he drilled a hole in his head. Yeah, and he wasn't dead. He was still alive when he did this. He drilled a hole in his head, and then he pours hydrochloric acid into the hole, so into the brain, and he's trying to make a zombie out of this 19-year-old. And this guy ends up waking up, you guys, with a hole in his head, acid in his brain, and he, quote, says, "I have a headache, what time is it?" End quote. Like, so Jeffrey did end up killing this guy as well. I'm not sure why he killed him, if he was like doing that whole plan, you know. But yeah, he did kill him, and he wanted to keep this skull because there was a hole in it, so it was like very special to him. But he did end up crushing it. But I know he tried like extra hard. He like used really cold water and like just used his ingredients like very, very carefully to try to preserve this skull, but it did end up shattering as well. So I'm pretty sure like that one made him really mad as well. Remember how Jeff has his own apartment now? So the tenants actually start complaining that there's like a really bad smell coming from his apartment, and also that they are hearing a lot of noises, a lot of chainsaw noises. Oh my god. And yeah, so then he gets a call from like the building manager, and he's like, you know, you're getting all these complaints, there's a really bad smell coming from your apartment, like what's going on? And Jeff just says that his fridge broke down, so like that all the food in his fridge like went to waste, and that's what the smell is. So the manager's like, okay, well, just take care of that. And Jeff says, okay, I will. But of course the complaints don't stop. He actually gets another call just 2 weeks later from the office manager, and he's like, hey, they're still complaining about a really bad smell coming from your apartment, like what's going on? And this time Jeff says, oh, I had some tropical fish that died, and that's what the smell is. And the manager's just like, okay, well, take care of it, you know, like they are complaining. And then he also tells them about like the chainsaw noises and all the noises coming and the banging. And Jeff just says like, what chainsaw? Like, I don't have a chainsaw, and I don't know about what noises they're talking about. So I don't really know what came of that, but like he kind of just denied it, or like said he wasn't trying to be loud. But overall, the manager just said take care of it because a lot of people are complaining. So May 26, 1991, Jeff finds another 14-year-old boy. He tells him the same thing, like, hey, I'll give you $50 if you come take some pictures for me. And, you know, the kid agrees. They go back to his apartment, and, you know, so the kid agrees. They end up going back to Jeff's apartment. And again, he wants to try this whole zombie thing. So he ends up, you know, drugging him. Then he drills a hole into this kid's skull and tries pouring acid in it again. Sorry, it's really hard to talk and apply lipstick at the same time. So when this is happening, the kid runs into the room and he sees another dead body on the floor. And can you just imagine what this kid felt seeing that and like being attacked? I just can't imagine the thoughts running through his head. But for some reason, Jeff decided to leave. The kid was still alive. He just had a hole in his head and acid in his brain. But Jeff decided to go leave. I think he went to the store to buy more alcohol, but when he came back, the kid actually managed to get outside. Now remember, he did have a hole in his head and acid in his brain, so he couldn't really talk. He wasn't feeling well at all. He was like stumbling, trying to escape, but he couldn't really tell anyone what was happening. 3 women were outside and they found him, and they were trying to investigate what was going on. They were trying to ask him like, are you okay? But again, like, he can't talk, he can't communicate. And then that's when Jeffrey actually is coming back, and he sees the kid outside with these 3 women, and he just starts, he panics, you know, but he just goes on and tells them, oh, like, this is my boyfriend. He just got really drunk and he stumbled out here. But the ladies are not buying it. One of the ladies, she's like really not having it. She's like, no, this is a little boy. You can tell he's so little and he does not look well at all. And she had already called the cops. So when they're outside arguing, the cops are already getting there, and then Jeff has to explain to the cops like what's going on, you know. So once the cops are here, they start questioning Jeff, like, what's going on, like, who is this man? And Jeff just tells them like, this is my boyfriend. He's just really drunk and he stumbled out here, and he's like, I'll get him back in, like, don't worry, like, I'll take care of it, like, he's my boyfriend. But the girls are telling the cops like, no, like, this is clearly a little kid, like, you can see how young he looks and he just does not look well. He was also bleeding, and they were just like, something's not right. You know, one of the girls, she's trying so hard to convince the cops like, no, something's not right. And the cops straight up tell her, quote, "Butt out, shut the hell up, and do not interfere," quote. Like, how are you gonna tell that to someone who's just clearly trying to help? But yeah, that's what the cops say. They do not listen to the women, so they end up escorting the 19-year-old and Jeff back into his apartment. And Jeff is like, "Look, I have these pictures. You can see he's clearly my boyfriend," because remember, he was taking pictures of his victims. So he was like, "See, he lets me take pictures of him. Like, this is my boyfriend. Like, everything's fine. He's just drunk." And so the cops end up believing him, and they just leave that kid there with Jeffrey. Like, I don't know, that just, to me, like, if they would have just investigated a little bit more, if they would have just at least done a background check on Jeff, they would have seen he is a registered sex offender. He has a lot of like past problems with the law, and they just decided to believe him and leave the kid there. Sorry. And leave the kid there, and because of that, like, that kid was killed eventually. So after this incident where Jeff was almost caught, like, he could have been caught that night. No, he ended up killing 3 more men, and he would call out of work a lot just so he could stay home and like play around with these bodies. He would literally call off work like, "Hey, I'm sick, I can't come in today," and then stay home dismembering these bodies, pulling out these body parts, eating these body parts. So eventually he did lose his job for calling out too much. He got fired. I curled my hair, but that was like 3 hours ago, and now it's like this mess. So on July 22nd, 1991, Jeff was at a gay bar and he met 3 men, and then he offered those men $100 if they would come back and pose nude for him. And only one of those men said yes, like, hell yeah, I'll do it for $100. So they went back to his apartment, and as soon as this man walked into Jeff's apartment, he just got the biggest whiff of like a horrible smell, and he asked Jeff, like, "What's that smell?" And Jeff told him the same story. "Oh, my fridge broke and all of my food went to waste." They went to the bedroom and they were drinking, and then the man saw a 57-gallon like barrel on the side of the room, and he was just, I don't know if he asked Jeff like, "What is that?" but he definitely saw it, and he was like, "What the fuck is that?" So then they're laying down, they're just chilling. Then Jeff proceeds to put his head on the victim's chest, and he's holding a knife, and he says, "I'm going to rip your heart out." I don't know, like, if someone were to tell you that holding a knife laying on you, like, what would you do? Like, I just can't imagine what this man was like thinking, like feeling. But at this point, like, he knew, like, oh shit, like, this guy's about to kill me, I need to get out of here. And he starts thinking about like ways to get out, like what can he do. He starts thinking of a plan in his head, right? You know, so he's looking at all of these windows, like where can he run to. And eventually, like, Jeff just gets distracted by something, and he ends up punching Jeff in the face, and he just bolts out of there, you guys. He runs to the door and gets out, and this man just keeps on running. He does not stop running, you guys. He runs. As soon as he sees cops, he like flags them down. He's like, hey, help me. He flags down these 2 cops. He's also handcuffed because Jeff had handcuffed him when he walked into the apartment. So he was like, "This man is trying to kill me. Like, I was in his apartment. He handcuffed me. He said he was gonna rip my heart out." And yeah, and the officers try to take off his handcuffs, but they don't have the key. So they actually go back to Jeff's apartment, and the guy's like obviously not scared because he has cops with him. So he tells them, like, "This is the apartment. That's him." Knock on Jeff's door, and they're like, "Hey, did you handcuff this man?" And Jeff is like, "Oh yeah, but I was just playing, we were just hanging out." Cops were like, "Okay, well, do you have the key?" And Jeff is like, "Oh yeah, I think it's in a dresser somewhere." And they're like, "Okay, well, we'll look around." And then Jeff is like, no, like, he gets really like nervous. He's like, no, I'll go get it. So he goes to the room and he's like, "It's that drawer and I'll go get it." But then the cops are like, "Step aside, like, I'll go get it." So then this cop walks to the dresser, and what do you guys think he finds in that dresser? He found the key, but he also found 74 pictures of all different kinds of bodies, like dismembered, bloody. It was just horrific, you guys. I can't imagine. And then the cop noticed, like, the background of these pictures is the background of this apartment. So he's like, "Oh my god, like, these are real, like, these are real pictures." And once he tells the other cop, like, these are real pictures, they try to arrest Jeff, and that's when like Jeff knew he fucked up, you know. That's when he's like, oh shit, like I need to leave. And he tried like fighting the arrest, but they did get him, thank God, finally. They handcuffed him, they arrested him, and they just called more police. And what they found after in his apartment is just horrible. So obviously more cops come to the apartment. It's now a crime scene. They open the fridge and the first thing they see is a severed head. Like, can you imagine opening a fridge, someone's fridge, and there's like a head staring at you right there? Oh man, I would lose my shit. But let me just read to you guys what they found. I actually wrote it down. So they found, you know, the severed head. They found body pieces, 4 heads, 4 skulls. These skulls were everywhere. They were just like scattered all over his apartment. They also found 2 hearts, a torso, organs and flesh, 2 skeletons, hands, penises. And you guys remember that 57-gallon barrel that the man saw in the corner of the room? There was 3 torsos in there dissolving. He was trying to dissolve 3 full adult men torsos in a barrel in his room. And, you know, along with the 74 pictures that they also found. So this is how Jeff ended up getting caught, because this one man was able to escape and get cops. And yeah, thank God that he was able to escape, because if he didn't, like, who knows how much more victims there would be. So July 23rd, 1991, Jeff admitted to killing all of these men. He said he had been killing since 1987, and he told them, like, all the victims, he told them everything he did to them. He was sentenced to life in prison plus 70 years because in his state, the death penalty is not allowed. So he actually wanted the death penalty, but that was not allowed in his state. So when he was first transferred into prison, he was in solitary confinement for 1 year, just because, you know, the things he did, a lot of people were gonna want to kill this man, especially since he did this to kids, teenagers. So yeah, they had put him in 1 year solitary confinement just for his own safety, which, I mean, who cares about his own safety, honestly, but I guess they have to. But yeah, he was separated from everyone for 1 year. And Jeff didn't want that. He wanted to be out with everyone else, and he actually fought it. He wanted to be let out in the prison. Everyone kind of knew, like his lawyers and his dad, that that would not be a good idea. I mean, everyone knows a lot of people are going to want this man dead. So they did not think that was a good idea, but Jeff didn't care. So after 1 year, he was transferred. He wasn't in solitary confinement anymore. So then November 28th, 1994, he was cleaning the bathrooms with 2 other men, and the officer just happened to step away for 1 second, and one of the men beat him, like, really bad. He beat him with a metal pole, like he was hitting his head, his face, and he just beat him like really bad. He also beat the other prisoner that was with him, and he ended up killing both, actually. So that is how Jeffrey Dahmer died. He didn't die right away. He actually was transferred to the hospital, and they tried, you know, treating him, but eventually he just died of the wounds and the impact. Yeah, so that's when he died. And when they asked him, why did you kill the other prisoner, he said the same thing, just God told me to do it. As of Jeffrey's family, his mother ended up dying in 2000. His father is retired, and he also wrote a book about Jeffrey and like everything that happened. And his brother's not talked about at all, really. I know he changed his last name. He just did not want any part of this, which I understand completely. But yeah, that's pretty much the whole like Jeffrey Dahmer situation. I'm sure it's a lot worse than like just telling the story, like what each victim went through and like all the process and all of that. But yeah, it's just so crazy to me how long it took to get him, with like all of the red flags, all the arrests, like all the cop interventions that never, like, he never got caught until that last time. Like, there was so many opportunities. Yeah, but that's it for this video, guys. Thank you so much for watching, and don't forget to subscribe before you leave. Also, give this video a thumbs up, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye, guys.